Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriela Macedo. I'm Scope Regional Assistant for Americas. I'm from IFMSA Brazil. And we also have Eugenio.
Yes, my name is Eugenio Sangüesa. I'm the Scope Regional Assistant for the Americas. I'm from Chile. And we have also...
Hello, everyone. My name is Guillermo Leon, and I'm from Panama. I am the current regional assistant for the Americas for the Standing Committee of Human Rights and Peace, or most known as CORP.
And well, today we are going to show you our webinar on intercultural learning and conflict management. Let's go.
So, let's get starting about the intercultural learning, we need to have a better understanding about the meaning on culture and what does it stand for. So there are two guys that were called Lavire and Porter, that they were the writers of a book about communication between culture, and they define culture as refer of the cumulative deposits of knowledge, experience, belief, values, and attitudes that englobe and acquired by a specific group of people in the course of generation through individuals and groups striving. These meanings also supported by the UNESCO, which are everything that englobe and that complex as a whole in the capabilities and the habits that are acquired by humans as a member of the society. And it's really important to know about this because this is something that identifies us as human beings inside a society. Next. So in the next topic, for us to understand a little bit more also when it comes about culture and interculturality, we need to understand that also the meaning about interculturality nowadays. By the UNESCO guidelines of intercultural education made on 2006, they define that interculturality is a dynamic concept that that refers in everything that englobes between the relation of a specific group between a cultural aspects as a whole. So it's a way for us to connect the culture that we have from one place to another, and that it's identifying us in specific places around the world. And when it stands for this, there are specific documents that support what is culture and its importance. And here it goes to the next part where we talk about specific rights that were created and that were established by the Declaration of the Human Rights that divided each human rights in 5 different aspects. So we go to the next point and we will see that it will have the civil rights, the political rights, the economics right, and the cultural rights. In this specific section, we will be talking specifically about the relation that cultural rights and social rights have in our daily based life, and how it's important for us as medical students to know about this, and that there are documents that actually support this and that protect this. Because we live in a globalized world that is connected in an intercultural way, and that the diversity that we have nowadays is a specific element that define us through history, and the enrichment of this culture, how identify us to integrate in our society, and why human rights and fundamentals of liberty is important for us. Last year, there was the 70th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights, and one of the main principles that they have is inside, and that they start stating was the right number 1, where it says like all human rights, all human beings are born for equal dignities and rights. And also, they stated that it's really important for us to take this into consideration, because these are a specific aspect that identify us as human beings, and in a way for us to have a more inclusive society in nowadays. Because there are different conventions that have been elaborated for us to decrease and stop the different forms of racial discrimination or any other type of discrimination that we might face nowadays. So for us to have an idea and to understand nowadays, there are specific documents and guidelines that support and that protects the culture of each person, and that from place to place, how diverse we are and how different we are. So we go forward to the next slide, and we will see two different questions where it comes. Why should medical students connect with different people? Because nowadays, as there's a huge amount of culture aspect that identify us, we need to understand how to approach to the people, how to approach to specific groups, to specific minority groups, because it's a specific value that we need to first protect and also take important of. Because with this, we're able to contribute to an education to educational systems that will be more approachable to everyone, and that we don't discriminate or we don't take any stance or we don't have a specific prejudice for specific people because of the difference of cultural aspects that we might see when it comes to our daily basis life practice as medical students. So it's very important for us to understand a specific key factor that comes in culture, and why cultural competence and intercultural learning is so important in our daily basis life, because from place to place it changes different aspects, and we need to understand it more and to take into consideration that not everyone are the same. So let's go to the next point, where it talks a little bit more about the different things that happens in cultural aspects, with a really nice graphics that is an iceberg. We're going to be explaining it in a more deeper way.
Next, please. Next slide. Next one, please. So, well, here we have an iceberg. We are going to use this iceberg to show how culture works. It's a very simple way to understand how culture, because maybe culture sometimes can be hard to understand. But first of all, we have the top of the iceberg. In the top, there is the part that we can see at first when we face a different culture. We can see the ways of life, the laws and customs, the institutions, methods, techniques, etc. But there's something more to know below the sea level in this iceberg, but it's invisible at first sight. So that's how culture works. At first, you can realize the difference that involves what I mentioned before, but then as you go deeper, you will know more about the way of thinking of people, the norms, the roles, the ideologies, the beliefs of philosophy, and even more deeper, you can see the feeling, the values, the taste, attitudes, desires, assumption, etc. Please, next. So now here we have the culture wheel. It's also another example to show how culture works. The culture is about living and doing. It's a continuous programming of the mind, which starts from birth, includes, as I said before, norms, values, customs, languages, tools, arts, food, and drinking. It's the feeling of belonging to a group, a conception of world of life, a conception and a feeling of a group, the conception of belonging to a common history, to a common group of people. Next, please.
So let's go back to basics right now and let's understand what learning means. Well, we have some types of learning that could be cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. Well, in cognitive learning, it's really about what knowledge or beliefs that we acquire during life. Emotional learning is basically how we have learned to express our feelings and how those feelings have changed through time, especially due to many situations we have faced. And behavioral learning is what is visible of learning. Next slide, please. So, intercultural learning. Well, it really refers to the acquisition of knowledge and the skills that support the ability of learners to both understand culture and interact with people from cultures that are different from their own. So, it is developmental in the sense that learners advance through stages of progressively more sophisticated levels of understanding. And specifically regarding cultural awareness. So we have to develop this skill, and also for the person to understand the sense of cultural self-awareness, which is the basis of respect and avoiding comparisons that are inevitably made by the student, by the learner, by ourselves. Next slide, please. So, what is cultural shock? It's, well, as an exchange student that I was, is basically the most wow feeling that we ever have during our exchange. We feel sometimes lost, totally disoriented, and because we are living in a different culture, we are not in our homes. It's a different way of life, set of attitudes, but it's not a bad thing actually. So, next slide, please. Well, in this graphic, you can actually see the evolution of the cultural shock. You can see that first starts in the host country. You are there, you just arrived, so everything is new, is interesting and exciting. So you're just like, yay, let's go keep doing this and that. But then you start to realize that there are some differences between what you were used to, and then they start to become more visible and becomes to annoy you. So it kind of have some like frustrating moments during this experience. Then you start feeling a little bit homesick, depressed, helpless, and it's kind of like you reach like the bottom, so but it's not the end of the world, because after this point you start working on your way through this cultural shock and begin to adapt yours to your host culture. So you start learning, you start understanding things better, and you start to improve, you start to feel better again. Then becomes like that moment that you see this host country as your new home, and it's like amazing, you start feeling complete again. But then it happens that you have to return home. So you are also excited that you're returning home to your relatives. And it happens that you sometimes may feel frustrated, angry, or lonely because they do not, people, your friends, family, whatever, they will not understand what you have experienced before. And during this exchange experience, for example, people change, people grow personally and professionally. So people from your your home country, they will not understand you because you are a different person than when you left. So you kind of reach like a lower floor, but then you start readjusting to life at home again, and then you start growing and experience that good feeling again. And then the ultimate step is then you integrate what you learned and your experience into your new life. So you basically become like the old version of you and the new version, the pre-exchange, during exchange, and post-exchange student all at once, and you become a better, a grown-up, let's say. So next slide, please.
So in this slide about the pyramid of hate, here it comes the question, like, where are we stand right now as a federation? And currently there is an initiative from SCORP and Scopy joint initiative that is about an intersectional work that we're doing right now regarding recopilating information about intercultural aspect and how we could make a difference and make these current protections and the necessary things to make people feel comfortable and safe inside our IFMSA events. So we have been working, well, in this case, with the coordination of the SCORP director and SCOIP joint initiative to be working regarding this topic. And it comes to this part about the pyramids of hate. This pyramid it shows different behaviors that will be escalating in its level of complexity when it goes from bottom to top. And each section, we will see different negative aspects and impact that will impact each individuals and groups, as we might see from a single stereotype or funny joke to the most extreme case or most violent case that we could see when it comes to hate and different of opinions in cultural aspects. Next, please. So here is what comes the meaning of cultural competence and why it's important. It's very important for us to have these what it's really important for us to know about this topic that it's a behavior and an attitude that we must take, because when it comes to cultural competence, we are going to be working with different people that might not be thinking the same way of us, or will have different things that will be really different from our place of hometowns or the place that we are going to be working on. Next, please. And here, these are different skills that will allow us understand and appreciate the different cultures that we will be seeing and knowing in our daily basis life. So this is basically how we need to respect and understand that we as human beings identify ourselves with a specific cultural aspect, and that specific to the Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where it states that everyone has the right freely to participate in different cultural life of the community, to enjoy art and share that in scientific advancement and in benefits, for us to understand that we will be different in this aspect. Next, please. And when it comes to cultural competence and healthcare, it described that it's the ability to provide care to patients with diverse values, belief, and behavior by no making any prejudice or being biased or taking a stand because of the difference of a person. So that we must be really neutral when it comes to taking care of a patient, providing the necessary healthcare or the necessary basic needs that they need when it comes for at healthcare time for different people that we will be meeting and delivering a specific healthcare in our daily basis life as medical students. Next, please. And the question is, why is this important? Well, there are really different and a lot of answers for us to respond to this. But the main ones is that we are different because we are human beings, and that we need to respect also the difference of culture that we will be knowing and that we will be approaching when it comes to medical attention, when it comes to healthcare systems and stuff. That we need to be more open-minded and to have a diverse perspective on health and wellness and how we're going to approach to rural communities, to indigenous people, to minority groups. That we need to know how to integrate everything that we have learned during our times in university and how to put it in practice without judging or without leaving behind anyone because of the cultural or race difference that and the ethnicity differences that we might be seeing during our practice and our daily basis life. Next, please.
So now let's understand a bit more practically what we are talking about. So some common situations in our region are, For example, here in Americas, we have like a very similar culture. For example, we kiss and hug people just for greeting, even the ones we are just getting to know. And what I have experienced as Leo and Neo is that some exchange students really get scared when we do that. So we're just like, we instead of like shaking hands or something like that, no, we just already start hugging people and kissing and just like, oh my God, they get like really scared about it. So what should we do to avoid those kind of situations? Well, we really recommend you to warn them beforehand, okay? By sending an email or doing trainings like upon arrival training or pre-departure training, you know, just like really let them know how to get ready for that kind of situation. And of course, you can do it like focusing more on your country, like culture, behaviors, and stuff. Next slide, please. So also, most of our local committees host students via hosting families. When our students go abroad, it is not necessarily the same. Sometimes they stay in university dorms or student flats. So what do we do for our students that are leaving our region? Well, we have to explain to the exchange student our outgoing throughout the pre-departure training. We have to talk about social and cultural differences, just like what we have here, what we are doing right now, and really try to make them understand that they will not be treated like queens and kings, even though sometimes they wanted to. We all want to feel special, but that's a very specific situation. When people are traveling, for example, from Chile to Brazil, we have like very similar cultures. So people will stay in host family most likely, just in special cases. But if they go, for example, when I went to Austria for my exchange, I stayed in a student flat, and it was amazing. At first, I was worried about staying in a flat on my own, but being very honest, it was like the best experience ever. And that's what we should talk to our students and explain that it's not a bad thing, okay? Next slide, please.
Other common situations in our region, for example, are the concept of health, the healthcare system, and technology and resources. We still have some towns, even cities, where native or natural medicine is very popular among citizens. Maybe we can be used to it, but on our incomings, maybe not. Also, the differences between healthcare systems may be huge with other countries. The access, the guarantees, and the way of doing medicine can vary between countries. And last but not less important, the technology and resources. The access to the technology in medicine is related to the development of the country. And as we know, we can have some differences with countries inside our continent and even more with countries from other continents. So that can be shocking for some incoming students or outgoing students. Next, please. Now let's move on to conflict management part. Next, please, Rodrigo. So why is important the conflict management? It's very important nowadays as it helps us to understand how conflict happens and what is the best way to solve it. We as medical students are linked to a common group of health professionals. We have to work in team. We're going to face a lot of conflicts during our life, and even more in our professional life. Next. So what do you believe about conflicts? We used to believe that conflicts are unhealthy, undesirable, and need to be avoided at all costs. It is assumed that conflicts are abnormal and the result of personality problems or differences. Next, please. But that's not true. Conflicts can be healthy and can produce desirable outcomes. A conflict is related to culture. The way we face a conflict, it's very personal, it's very variant. A conflict is just a difference, a discussion based on a topic. So it's on us the responsibility for not making it personal and to get to the healthiest solution. Also are very normal and inevitable. And it's important to remember that conflict should not always be avoided or managed. Next.
So, what is conflict? Well, basically, conflict is when two or more values, perspectives, and opinions are contradictory in nature and haven't been aligned or agreed about it yet, including within yourself when you are not living according to your values. It usually happens a lot when you are just, for example, yeah, I should be studying more, but I can't due to whatever reason. So you start in your own inner conflict. um, Also, when your values and perspectives are threatened for also whatever reason, can be thinking of like religion thing, or for example, Euge doesn't like my Spanish accent, so we are just like in a conflict because of that. That's just an example. Or even discomfort from fear of the unknown, or from lack of fulfillment, or even lack of knowledge. This is also very common nowadays, especially during especially due to religion things. And this is basically because people really do not understand each other, do not know how to respect each other's differences. Next slide, please. So, is conflict a problem? No, the conflict is never a problem. But if you do not solve conflicts, well, that can cause a lot of problems. When we begin to understand a conflict, is the moment when we are able to preserve and strengthen our work relationship. So, for example, as the example I gave before about Eugenio does not liking my amazing Spanish accent. Well, because of that, I would talk to him, and we both are going to try to achieve a status of me trying to improve my Spanish accent, and he also trying to be more understandable about it. Next slide, please. Well, doing that will improve our own productivity by reducing the time and energy spent on handling conflict. Because, well, Eugenio and I were always like fighting because of my accent. So when we stop caring about it and start like working together for the main goal we are working on, so my Spanish accent will not be a big deal for him. We both will stop losing energy and becoming more active and productive on our real work on the exchanges. And by doing that, we'll also reduce the stress in our own lives and help get better results from the conflicts that we do have. So even because of this stress that I was going through with Eugenio because of my Spanish accent, so I was even getting bad grades in school because I was like always worried on how can I improve my Spanish. So after Eugenio and I get along, our work, both of our works on exchanges will be better, and even my personal situation in university, my grades will be better. That's just an example for you to understand on how things can be improved in all aspects of life, and that is really important for everybody to like give and take a bit on conflict situations. Next slide, please.
So in this part, it comes the different conflicts evolutions. And in this way, for us to have a correct and a more accessible way of changing it from a conflict to post-conflict peace building, we need to have a dynamic communication that will allow the individuals to resolve specific conflicts by managing their communication and connections rather than changing a specific strategy or work. This is a really common thing that happens among humans or specific groups who can make deliberate choices regarding who they want to interact with. So when it comes to a conflict evolution, it will start specifically with a latent conflict that could continue or will stop at that specific moment. If it continues, it will come to a specific conflict emerge where the conflict between people or groups will start emerging, erupting. After that, the conflict could change and escalate to different types, from a light tactic to a heavy tactic, and it will involve a huge amount of people. And in this case, we will need to be able to take a middle point and know how to start having a specific statement or having a point for people to get to a medium point. And when we get to this part, it will be quite difficult because here will be admitting a specific mistakes and differences that were obstructing or obstacling our work and that slow it down. So we're going to be making different points for us to stop the conflict and to get to the same point. After that, it comes to the phase or de-escalation or negotiation, where we will be seeing the decay of the conflict and the different evolutions that it will be coming to a specific peace building situation. And at this point, we will be able to solve the situation and to work as a group and as a team to solve any issue that we have, to rebuild the trust, to be loyal between colleagues and friends, and to have confidence toward the group. Next, please. So when it comes to attitudes toward conflict, there are 5 specific aspects that it comes to dealing with conflicts. The first one would be avoiding it. Would be pretending that it's not there or ignore it at all. This is like the most easy way to stop a specific conflict, but usually this approach tends to worsen the conflict over time because it can send the wrong message. The second one is accommodated, which give if to others or sometimes to the extent that you compromise yourself. This this specific situation looks for a way to arrange things in the most suitable or most convenient way. The next point will be competing, which work to get your way rather than clarifying and addressing the issue. The fourth point will be the compromising, which is a mutual give and take, just when the goal is to get past the issue and move on. Is where you get to a specific point and a middle point for you to continue working as a team and as a group and don't leave behind what you have been doing. And the last one, or the fifth point, but last but not least, is the collaborating part, which focuses on working together and just when the goal is to meet as many core needs as possible by using mutual resources. This approach shall sometimes raise new mutual needs and introduce when the goal is to cultivate ownership and commitment in a specific group that had been with a huge conflict in the past. Next, please. And how could we prevent these different behaviors? Well, there are a lot of things that we could do, but the main ones, first is like separate anger in a specific situation. But so putting anger beside and separate yourself from the situation and take a break is a good way for us to rethink and start making the difference for us to have a more collaborating and compromising behavior. The second one is like do not attack the problem, not attack the problem, but not the person. In this case, like start talking about the specific issues that were affecting the group and see the differences and how could you work with it and try to make the different changes. So with this is for us not to lose the focus of what are we working and not focusing specifically about the issue and not giving a specific position to a specific person or to a specific group. The other one is try to keep solutions in mind, be proactive and really collaborative in the groups for us to get to a middle point and to have a same solution that will work for everyone. Accept our mistakes and learn from them and respect the difference that we have in a specific in the group because of the amount of people. Do not judge or take specific conclusions or assume specific things before asking or knowing the real situation. And no interrupting when it comes to improve the situations. In this case, ask for feedback, debrief about the conflict that were affecting the group, talk and make a specific point for decrease the amount of conflict that you have in that moment. For us to have a better conflict management when it comes to groups leading and when it comes to team building. Next, please.
So for the last part, we're going to talk about the take-home messages about intercultural learning and conflict management. Next, please. So first of all, it's not about learning facts about a particular culture. It's about to learn from the difference that you can face, that you can see from the other cultures. And with that, do a process of personal development and involving relevant knowledge, attitudes, values, and behaviors. Next. Next. Next, please. It's also a part of knowing yourself, where you came from, who you are. The intercultural learning is a rewarding process. And the most important part, it can be used for learn to respect each other and encourage other people to learn and do the same. We release the potential for people to work and live together successfully in our very diverse world. Next, please. So was our webinar. Thank you guys for your attention.
Feel free to ask questions as well in the comments or reach us via our emails or even WhatsApp if you have them. And I really hope to see you all in Taiwan.
Yes.
Yes. So do we have some questions or in our inbox?
So just let us know, and we will be more than glad to answer any question that you have.
So far there are no questions. Well, feel free to reach to us, okay? You can find us on our emails. Mine is array.scopy.americas@ifmsa.org. There is Euge, which is array.scory.americas@ifmsa.org, and Guille, array.scorp.americas@ifmsa.org. So thank you for watching. You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, hi guys again. I've not been on the show, but I just wanted to look in with these all gorgeous guys here uh, to tell you thank you for attending all the webinars. This has been a very nice time until now, delivering all the webinars all together with the regional team. Don't forget that you can always demand us, ask us via email, WhatsApp, any means of communication you may have with us for more materials, more assistance on any of these topics that are ultimately aimed at enhancing our NMO management in the Americas. So thank you all guys for these weeks. So as per the NMO management webinar series, this is it for this term so far. So I hope you all are having a wonderful time in your countries, and if traveling to Taiwan as well, have a blast there, guys. You will see these pretty places. So, bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.